So you might be wondering the exact same thing that I asked Cypher when we heard this news. What does this mean for our prospect of a spring election?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. News broke this week that the first deadline for the public inquiry has been delayed from its original date of February 29th. In addition, some positive news regarding the Conservatives' standing within the public inquiry also came to light. So what does this mean in terms of the inquiry itself, and how this fits into the chess match of a spring election?
Let's take a look.
Canada's public inquiry into foreign interference has set the dates for its public hearings, the federal government announced on Friday. The hearings are the first of two expected to take place in 2024 and are part of the inquiry into allegations of interference from China, Russia, and other foreign actors, and any impact they had on the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. According to a release, the hearings will look to determine how to make as much of the information received public in both the hearings and reports, given that much of the information would come from classified documents and sources. Quote, "These hearings are preliminary in that they will serve to prepare the next public hearings at which the Commission will examine the substantive issues arising from its mandate," end quote, Marie-Josée Hogue, the judge tapped to lead the public inquiry, said. January's hearings will take place across 5 days in Ottawa and will see factual witnesses and experts testify.
With the announcement of the first set of hearings, the commission in charge of the inquiry has requested the due date of its first report be postponed until May 3rd. Quote, "The purpose of this postponement is to give meaning and purpose to the preliminary hearings and to allow more time to maximize the transparency of the commission's work," end quote, Hogue said. Quote, "Ensuring that classified information, intelligence, and documents are put in a form that is such that they can be released to the public is a long and complex process. The Commission is committed to holding public hearings before it submits its first report," end quote. The Commission notes the deadline for its second report of December 31st, 2024 can remain intact because it plans to conduct the second stage of its work in parallel with the first. When the public inquiry was announced, Hogue laid out two phases, with the second seeing the inquiry examine the government departments and agencies to see how the federal government can detect and counter foreign interference. The public hearings will begin on January 29th and run for 5 days in downtown Ottawa.
So first, let's recap what we already know. The Conservative Party was not given full standing in the public inquiry. However, neither was the NDP. So what does full standing grant you anyhow? It allows people to cross-examine witnesses and see all evidence presented in the inquiry, not just what's made available to the public. The Conservatives were granted what's called intervener status, which allows any member of the party to be present at the public hearings, make legal submissions, and see evidence presented in public. Sebastian Skamsky, a spokesperson for the Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, leader Pierre Poilievre, said they are disappointed not to be given the full participation they asked for. Quote, "The decision by Justice Hogue to deny full standing to the Conservative Party in the public inquiry is deeply concerning and undermines the credibility of the entire process," end quote, he said in an email. Quote, "Political parties are directly affected by foreign interference in our democracy," end quote.
Now let's take a look at a piece of news that not many people have spoken about. Hogue gave full standing to the government, the Commissioner of Elections, and several diaspora groups. She also gave full standing to former Liberal MP Han Dong and former Ontario MPP Michael Chan. Both the Conservatives and NDP are granted full standing in the second part or policy phase of the inquiry when the probe looks for reforms to counter foreign interference. In addition to that, Commissioner Hogue has, however, already granted full standing, or what is called party standing, to Conservative Foreign Affairs critic Michael Chong, whom the Globe and Mail revealed in May was targeted by China along with his Hong Kong relatives over criticism of Beijing. So, what does all of that mean? Well, the good news is it seems that they are committed to trying to release as much information publicly as possible. Now, what Justice Hogue said is correct in that there is a long process that's required to look at documents that are classified as top secret or not for public consumption and transpose those into a format that is appropriate to release to the public. So what it sounds like is that it's taking longer than they anticipated to actually go through that process, and that's what's holding things up. The hearings are going to be launched essentially the week that the Parliament sits again after the holiday break, which is the week of January 29th. And no doubt that will be taking up all of the news cycle during that first week of February. So, although it's unfortunate that the Conservative Party was not given full standing, the good news is that at least one of them, Michael Chong, does have full standing. What does that mean? He gets to see all of the evidence and he gets to ask questions, for all the witnesses. So no doubt he's going to be given a lot of support from all of the staff of the Conservatives as they're, kind of prepping, what to be asked. The unfortunate part is we don't know how much time he's actually going to be given in order to actually ask questions. So it'll be interesting because we've only seen Michael Chong in committee, at least on Northern Perspective, once. And that was when he was questioning David Johnston when he was just about to resign, unbeknownst to everybody else. And we're not really sure, is he going to be a really effective interrogator or is he not? Is he equipped for this? Time will tell. What we do know about Michael Chong is he's one of the most respected individuals that actually sits in that house, as Fox has said a couple of times. And he can get passionate, as we've seen in question period, when he really feels like something has gone awry. So it'll be very interesting to see how he approaches these questions. Yes, we would all rather seeing a Michael Cooper or a Larry Brock or a Michael Barrett in there, or even a Garnet Genuis. But let's not discount Michael Chong before he has the opportunity to speak. And remember, he's coming from a position of having been personally interfered with when it comes to foreign interference. So let's see what happens there. In terms of the delay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the new timeline is now May 3rd, and that is when the report is going to be presented.
So you might be wondering the exact same thing that I asked Cypher when we heard this news. What does this mean for our prospect of a spring election?
Well, in my opinion, this was welcome news to Justin Trudeau. Why is that? Well, the new electoral boundary changes take effect as early as April 24th, which is almost a week to the day earlier than this new deadline. So, did Justice Hogue ask for an earlier deadline, and did Trudeau extend it? We don't know. That's all speculation. But what seems to be happening here is again, another game of chess. If I'm Trudeau, I'm calling Jagmeet Singh's, potential bluff. Trudeau knows full well of the letter that the NDP sent out, which we showed everybody, that they're asking for donations in anticipation of a spring election. That's exactly what they said in that letter. So Trudeau knows that, and the Liberal Party knows that. Trudeau would know why. They all know that these electoral boundary changes are coming just as we do. So this would be a way of playing chicken with Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, saying, I'm going to make you choose. Are you going to wait to see that report to call an election? Or are you going to be looking to call an election before that? Now, this may not change very much because remember, intervener status gives the NDP the ability to sit in on this public inquiry, to sit in on the meetings, and hear this discourse go on. They don't get to see all of the direct evidence, but they get to hear about it. So the question is that going to give Jagmeet enough quote unquote comfort or justification to say, yeah, I've heard enough in the public inquiry to be able to be satisfied that there's no significant foreign interference to worry about in this election.
So is he going to jump the gun ahead of a report and call an election anyways?
That's the risk.
And that's kind of the way we're leaning.
Again, just from a strategy point, a numbers point, I don't think the NDP has a choice. I really don't.
Right, because if they wait until after the boundary change, they're automatically losing at least 10% of their seats. And that's ignoring the polls. Like if the polls were exactly the same they were in 2021, they'd lose 10% of their seats anyways just by how the riding boundaries are drawn on the map.
And here's the other thing. Jagmeet could jump up and down as of January and start complaining that they don't have full standing as well as the Conservatives. And he could be jumping up and down, turning this into a partisan issue, and waving at the Liberals, saying that, oh well, you know, we're not confident in this, and it's biased towards the Liberals, and all of this stuff. He could actually do that. This could actually work in his favor, and he could be pointing at this delay and saying, oh, you know, this is why this is happening. So he could also use that as justification. So it'll be interesting to see which chess pieces he plays here. But just when you look at the numbers, again, when you simplify this down, the possibility of gaining more seats for the NDP becomes exponentially harder after the boundary changes. They're sitting pretty good now. They're in the range of between 30 and 40 seats during a campaign. It's expected that Trudeau is probably going to lose some ground, even though people say that he's a good campaigner. So it's possible that he'll slingshot ahead of them. But so far, I still think he has to call it.
Here's what I think is going to happen. So as Cypher said, the NDP, including Jagmeet Singh, has intervener status in the public inquiry, which starts up on January 29th. So from January 29th until March the 1st, when the pharmacare deal is set to be due, the NDP and Jagmeet Singh can sit in on that inquiry, and they will have all of the knowledge that the public will have. So my guess is what's going to happen is that when March 1st rolls around and that pharmacare plan does not come to fruition the way that Jagmeet Singh wants it to, which we have discussed previously. You can go back and watch some of our videos on why we think that's not going to happen. I think he's going to take the weekend and he's going to still call that election on March the 4th.
And the other thing is that because the public inquiry meetings are going to be taking place from the 29th of January until Friday the 2nd of February, that's 1 week that is effectively lost in terms of working on this pharmacare bill, right? So now there's only 4 weeks to get this bill through. I still don't see it happening. Even in that timeline, I don't see it happening. And I don't see it happening in a format that the NDP are going to accept. So the timeline still holds. The only question is Jagmeet going to wait for the report and then move for it, potentially losing even more seats as a result of the new boundaries? Or is he going to see what the public inquiry has in store through those hearings that are going to occur from the 29th to the 2nd, and then base his decision on that? He's going to have 4 weeks to think about what was heard there to make his decision. But either way, I think he still has to call it, just from a numbers perspective. Time will tell. Let us know what you think in the comments.